Hi, I'm Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to episode 5 of my new exciting podcast. Can you believe we had 5 of these already? This is amazing. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a second. You said that you were going to be in America now, and you're in America. So how come you have the same exact backdrop? Well, obviously I'm not filming this at the same time because, see, I have a different tie. It couldn't be that I just went and changed my tie. Now you may think, how is it that your hair looks exactly the same? Because I ran out and got a haircut 3 days before this podcast just so it would look the same. This is my commitment to you to be able to maintain that. So you say, well, it's the same exact backdrop. But as I already mentioned, these aren't real Svarim. This is a poster. I just took it with me to America and hung it up behind me. And in fact, somebody wrote a comment and said, where can I buy that poster? We will be marketing the Svarim poster for people who would like to have the Rabbi Orlofsky backdrop in your own home. And you could make your own podcast. And we could see who does a better Rabbi Orlofsky, me or you. So, no, I have to tell you the truth. I really don't have to tell you the truth. I will tell you the truth anyway. We actually are filming this in Yerushalayim. This has been pre-recorded. So, I want to make sure we get in these things so I don't miss them when I'm in America. I'm sure they must have recording equipment in America, but I don't really know where or what or how to do it. And America is such a backward place; it doesn't have the technological advances that we have here in Israel. So it's one of the great things of being in Israel is that Israelis are sure that they have everything better. So somebody told me, how come there's no real cream cheese here? If you've ever been to Israel, you know that they sell the cream cheese not based on flavor, but based on fat content, So you go to the store, they have 9%, 5%, 3%, 0.5%, but it's all the same thing, So someone told me that in the early years of the state, the owner of Friendship Dairies came to see Tenuva. And he says, it's so beautiful. He says, the only thing you don't have is cream cheese. We're going to teach you how to make cream cheese. And he said, you'll teach us, we'll teach you. We got married, we came to Israel, for our first year, for Shana Rishona. 1982, they just came out with lasagna noodles. It was this large. If you're listening to this, it was this large. You have to use your imagination. Imagine very, very long noodles. There was no pot that you could possibly boil these in. But what happened? Someone said, well, you don't have any lasagna noodles. There's a muzzle lasagna noodles. He goes, they're long noodles. He goes, we will make them even longer. So we're convinced here in Israel that what we have is bigger and better than anything you guys have out there, and Chutz La'aretz. So anyway, that's the reason that we're recording this beforehand, just to make sure that, we can keep up with this exciting podcast. And so it's Parshas Toldos. Not really. Anyway, but it's very much like Parshas Toldos. And November 8th, wow, look how time flies. Anyway, so what do we want to talk about? I want to tell you a terrible story. I have, over the course of my lifetime, acquired many terrible stories. Now, there are many terrible stories I've heard, and I don't include those because I used to teach. I used to say every now and then, I have to go to the horror files. And the horror files was a collection of stories that I was directly involved with on some level. And they're terrible stories, terrible stories. And by the time the girls were second year, if I'd say I'm going to the horror store, I have to go to the horror files. They're like, don't go to the horror files, Someone's asked me, why don't you put them all out as a book, like in the horror files? I said, what do I need? People killing themselves en masse? They're very depressing stories. Each one is terrible. Anyway, but they're all true, and I've had exposure to them. And this is a story about a young man who I knew, who calls me up, Erev Yom Kippur. I was living in America at the time. And he calls me up and he says to me, I'm out of faith. Erev Yom Kippur is a really bad time to be out of faith. Yeah. And And I said, what's the problem? And he tells me about his life. And his life was a life of tragedy. His father was institutionalized in a mental institute before he was born. His mother was also mentally ill. She tried to kill him as a baby. She was institutionalized. He went to live with his grandparents, who were poor. He had a little store that he ran, and so he would go to school and would help his father in the store. And his severely mentally and physically handicapped aunt also lived with them, and he had to help take care of her and change her and all the things that you need to do with somebody who's just not self-sufficient. And he was taking care of the aunt and taking care of, helping in the store and all the things. One time someone came in to rob the store. They shot his grandfather in front of him, who lived, but it was a serious thing. And he says, I was left behind to clean up my grandfather's blood on the store's floor, And it went like this. This was his life, yeah? And eventually he became frum, went off to Israel, and he's learning, and he starts dating. But he doesn't have an easy time, as you can imagine, yeah? Plus, he has some of his own physical difficulties, yeah? He doesn't think he's ever going to get married. And he finally, in spite of his own handicaps, he gets married, finds a nice girl. He gets married, and he says, we've been married for several years, and we just got the message from the doctor that we can never have any children. And now I'm out of faith. And I said, I need to think about this. Let me call you back. And I hung up the phone, and I looked devastated. I remember my wife, when I tell the story over, she said, I never saw you like that. I was physically ill. These two Bachrim went to see Rav Moshe Feinstein, and they were waiting outside the room, and the door was a little open, and they could hear what was going on, and there was an almana inside with a terrible, terrible tale of woe, and just crying and just terrible. Anyway, when she leaves, they were afraid to go in. They said, after a story like that, Rav Moshe will be shattered. And they walk in, and he has his usual Yeshiva Das and his usual Simchas Chaim. And they were amazed. They said, Rebbe, how is this possible? He says, what do you mean? So we heard what went on. So he says, first they gave him Musar. You're not supposed to listen in on people's conversations. And the second thing is, he said to him is, you can't get involved in working with the tzibur unless you lock away a certain part of yourself that you say for yourself. Because otherwise you won't be able to function. I said to Ray Bowman once, Ray Bowman had a very weak heart, he had problems. And I said to him, Rebbe, you're going to die of a broken heart. Because he took everything right in his heart. And that little place that Rav Moshe said that you have to have locked away, he didn't have, Anyway, so this hit me. You can handle a lot of things. So my wife said, what happened? I told her over the story. And she said, what can you say? And I said, I already know what to say. I'm trying to get the strength to say it. And I called him back and I said, I have no right to tell you what I'm about to tell you, but I'm going to tell it to you because you know that it's true. In this week's parasha, Yitzchak and Rivka don't have any children. For 10 years. 10 years they're childless. And Rashi says, why were they childless? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves the tefillas of tzaddikim. He wants to push them to say beautiful, beautiful tefillas. I said, I don't know why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so impressed with you, but he obviously feels that you're capable of greatness, and he's pushing you to achieve that greatness. And there was a silence, and then he said, I knew that already, I just had to hear it from somebody. An astounding concept. Yeah. Now, that's story number one. Here's story number two. I was asked to speak for an organization called A Time. This is an organization that deals with couples that haven't had children. I always get nervous when I'm speaking for organizations where there's special children, special adults, different levels of suffering, all kinds of different problems. I'm never really sure what the words are. I always daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give me the words to say so I know what to do. And I spoke to somebody who was a member who hadn't had children in a while. And I said, what do you want me to say? I said, I'm coming in. And people give chizuk, people give the same, the same basic lines, I said, what do you want me to say? And he said, say it stinks being us. So people come in and tell us what tzaddikim you are, how special you are, how wonderful you are. Guess what? I don't want to be special. I don't need this. I had a nephew who had a daughter with Down syndrome. And he says, I'd meet these rabbis, he said to me. And they'd say to me, well, it's really a bracha. These people are very close to their shleimus, and only special people are chosen to be able to get such a bracha. He says, I'd look at them and say, should I give you a bracha that you should have such a bracha like this? And they're like, oh, no, because don't say it to me, okay? Because you have no idea what I have to deal with. And it's easy. It's easy to say, oh, it's a bracha, you must be very special, you must be this. On one level, it's true. On one level, it's certainly true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pushes you to achieve greatness. I have a standard line when everybody asks me, how's it going? I said, Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu hasn't forgotten about me. My file is obviously open on his desk, and he thinks about me every day, yeah? The Gemara says if nothing bad happens to you in 30 days, you should get nervous because it could be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just gave up on you. He doesn't even care anymore. Yeah? I'm not worried. I know he's thinking about me. Yeah? There's enough going on that I don't have to worry that I've been forgotten. But who wants to deal with it? Who wants to find themselves in a situation where you have to confront these kind of terrible challenges? And it's easy for those of us who don't have those challenges. We can sometimes be a little flippant. Yeah, Kodesh Baruch Hu wants your tefillas, he wants you to daven that. I sometimes speak to parenting groups, and we're all struggling. We should talk about parenting one time, but, Parshas told us it's a little too hard to talk about. It's a little sore point, but, you got parenting groups, and there's always one mother who says, the important thing is to make sure that you tell your daughter what your expectations are. You have to set boundaries. My daughter says, can I buy this outfit? And I say, I don't think that's the right thing for you. And she says, okay, Ima. And sometimes she wants to go someplace with her friends, and I'm not comfortable about it. And I say, I don't think you should go there. And she says, okay, Mommy. And sometimes, everybody's going to whatever it is. And I say, I don't think that's right. And they say, okay, Mommy. And that's the thing is you just have to tell them what you expect. And every mother in the room is sinking into the ground. Because how many mothers have had the experience where we tell our kids, we don't want you to do this. And they're like, tough. I'm going to do it anyway. What are you going to do? Throw me out? And mothers are like, I don't know what to do. This mother tells me, she says, my husband tells our boys that they have to get up in the morning and go to shul. They can go to the 7 o'clock, they can go to 8 o'clock, but they have to go to shul. I said, but what if they don't get up? No. My husband tells them they have to get up in the morning and go to shul. They can go to the 7 o'clock, they can go to 8 o'clock, but they have to get up in the morning and go to shul. I said, but what if you tell them they don't go? No. My husband tells them they have to get up. I said, but what if they go? Anyway, I saw the husband. And I said, you tell your boys, because I tell them they have to get up in the morning and go to shul. I said, what if they don't get up? He goes, I don't know. That's brilliant parenting for you. Listen, If I tell my kid, I want you to do this, I don't want you to do this, and they say, okay, what's the big deal? Yeah. So I would tell these women, because I saw how everybody else was like devastated. And I'd say, you have to understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the most challenging children to the most talented parents. HaKadosh Baruch Hu obviously realizes you can't handle anything, so he gave you a yes mommy girl. And whatever you say, she says, yes, mommy, and you think you're a brilliant educator. Anybody can do that. There's no trick to that. Lee Iacocca, a name that probably means almost nothing to anybody over here. Lee Iacocca was a vice president over at Ford, and then he was taken in to save Chrysler, and he did a wonderful job. He saved Chrysler Motors. But he tells a story in his biography called Iacocca that when he was a vice president over at Ford, there was somehow a discussion about barbecuing. And Henry Ford III, I guess it was, said, nobody makes a burger, like my chef Bill. He makes the best burgers in the world. And, every man believes that he can barbecue, That's something primal there. They're returning to their caveman roots, So everybody should be able to, to barbecue. So they all say, what do you mean? I make the best burger in the world. I make the best burger in the world. So they decide to make a contest. At every weekly meeting, a different person would make their hamburger. I want to see who's the best. And so each one would make it. This one had his special method. He had his special sauce. He had this, And each time he would say, it's good, but it's not like Bill. It's good, but it's not like Bill. He said, so one day I went down to the kitchen. And I said to Bill, I said, how do you make your burger? And he says, I'll show you. He takes the most expensive cut of steak. He sticks it in the meat grinder, forms it into a patty, throws it on the grill, and says, like that. I'll ask you a question. How hard is it to be able to take the greatest thing in the world and be able to make something out of it? There's a television show on the Food Network called Chopped. Yeah, it's a very emotional show. People with high blood pressure should not watch this. This is too difficult, yeah. What it is basically is 4 chefs, and they have to prepare 3 courses, and after each round, you eliminate somebody, yeah? And they have a basket of weird ingredients, and they give you all these weird ingredients, and you have to make a course out of it. So I said, they should make a kosher chopped, Let's take a look what's in the basket. A brisket, potatoes, paprika, and onions. I think I'm going to make a roast brisket and potatoes. When you have like canned haggis, and lollipops, what I mean? Go make something out of that, It's much more challenging. Of course, if you have. So if you got a yes, mommy kid, there's no challenge to it. Everybody gets the challenge that they can handle. And, I speak for organizations like A Time, and I see people who are struggling with childlessness. And it's so painful. It's so painful. And it's one of the amazing things that I've seen is I've seen people wrestle with childlessness and then have a child and then complain about how the kid's no good. Now, you know what? I don't fault them. It's a Rashi. Yeah? Rachel Imenu is crying. She says, if I don't have a child, it's like I'm dead. Yeah? Mesa Anaichi. Yeah, what an unbelievable thing. And she finally has a child. And Rashi says, now, if something breaks, I have somebody to blame it on. That's what you needed a child for? Buy a puppy. You a child for that? So the Bali Musa says, even that. In other words, now I'm normal. I can even complain about my kid. I'm so normal that I have a kid that I can complain about like everybody else complains about their kids. I don't have to just sit there when I don't have a child and listen to everybody complaining about their kids and I'm thinking, if only you had a child. Now I have a child and I can complain about him too, like with everybody else. Yeah? I had a student she went into social work, and she was working in a mental institution. People who had lost their mind. And she said to me, I would look these people up on social media, and these people were normal. They had normal lives. They were normal people. And then they went insane, and they lost their minds. And now they have no shaykhs to who they used to be. And she looks at me and she says, that's the most painful thing in the world. And I said to her, that's a real hard thing to say. I spoke for an organization at a time for children, for couples that have no children. And they'll tell you that that's the most painful thing in the world. I spoke for parents whose kids went off the derech, who are, they don't know where they are at night. They don't know what they're doing, where they went. You know, as parents, we have expectations and dreams for our children, and it's all gone. And they'll tell you that's the most painful thing. I've spoken with older singles, and I'm talking about groups of older singles where the girls who would tell me their ages were in their 40s. The other ones wouldn't even tell me their ages. And, you know, with each passing year, they ask me, do you think I should freeze my eggs, you know, so I could still have children? And I speak to parents who have children who are severely handicapped, and what it is for them to have to try to be able to take care of those children. And I talk to people who don't have money literally to put food on the table. I speak for an organization, Karen Ezra Shabbos, and they said the reason they started it is because they used to see they were Talmidim in Torah Or, and people would come by at the end of the meals and collect the half-eaten challah, bread off of the tables. That's what their family ate. He says, and I asked one of them, I said, what about Shabbos? He says, well, in a good week, we buy a can of tuna fish that we all share. You know? I spoke for the Tomchei Shabbos in Muncie, and they said that the guy had a garage with no heat, and no electricity, nothing, that a family had to live in because they lost their house. They had no place to go. In the freezing cold Muncie winter, Well, you know what that is? Not to be able to feed your family, And it goes, and it goes, and it goes, And which is the worst pain? The answer is, my pain is the worst pain. Mel Brooks, when he was doing the 2,000-Year-Old Man, Carl Reiner asked him, he said, did you ever have comedians? He says, oh, we had a guy, Murray. One day a tiger walks into the cave, and he grabs him by the tail and goes, yaha, yaha, and the tiger turned around and ate him. So he says, well, that doesn't sound very funny, He says, what did we have back then, RKO? Then we're Murray and the tiger, He says, but that sounds more like tragedy. He says, what's comedy? He says, what's tragedy, what's comedy? Tragedy is if I cut my finger. Comedy is if you fall into an open manhole and die. My pain is something that is so real. And it's very hard for people sometimes to move outside of their own pain, to be able to see and understand somebody else's. And in this week's parsha, you get the gamut. You get to see a father who's blind, wanting to give a bracha to his children. One of them is a rasha. Right? Avraham dies before Esau became a rasha because HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised him seva tova, that he's going to have a good old life. How can you have a good old life if you see your grandson go off the derech, And you see 10 years of childlessness, and you see all the different kind of difficulties that people have to go through. Life is going to be filled with challenges, and it's so interesting that it's called Toldos. This is where we begin the generations of the Jewish people. And we're in this world to face challenges. As the Mesilas Yesharim says, V'lamoid b'nisayon. We're going to be given tests and challenges. If you have no tests and you have no challenges, it could be, says the Gemara, you have to worry that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just gave up on you. Doesn't care anymore. The challenges tell you something. If you studied for a test and you walk into a room and you're smart and you're capable, and the teacher hands you a blank piece of paper, and you say, no, I want to test like everybody else. He says, don't worry about it. I already gave you 100. No, but I want to take the test. That's cute. Why don't you draw a picture and we'll hang it up afterwards. But do it quietly because everyone else is taking the test. Das ist nicht der große COVID. For Kadosh Baruch Hu isn't going to give you the test. Yeah. We have challenges. Everybody has their challenges. People have challenges with children or not having children or getting married or not getting married. Yeah. People have challenges with money, with finances, with health, with disabilities, with all kinds of things that we have to deal with in life. And life is filled with challenges. Life is filled with difficulties. Which is the most painful? Which is the most painful? What would you say? Not having children? Having children who pass away? Spoken to parents? Widows? Orphans? Illness? Poverty? Not getting married, not having children. I don't know. Don't fall into the trap of measuring other people's pain. Because that's it. The pain is real. The pain is real. And if you try to compare your pain to somebody else's pain, you're going to be frustrated because you don't know what a person can handle. You don't know what a person can handle. Some people, if they had to face what other people had to face, they would just collapse. They don't have the tools to deal with it. Yeah. And other people are very strong. Other people can handle a tremendous amount. I'm going to tell you something I heard from a close Talmud. I don't know if it's true. I can't tell you if it's true. Yeah. Everyone knows that Rav Scheinberg Zatzal used to wear a lot of tzitzis. A lot of tzitzis. Yeah. And I remember when I was teaching in Or David, so they once took the boys to Rav Scheinberg, and they said, whatever you do, don't ask him about the tzitzis, yeah? So Rav Scheinberg speaks for a little bit, and he says, I'm going to take questions. So a guy raises his hand and says, okay, Rabbi, what's the deal with the tzitzis? And he says, when you get to be an old man like me, I'll tell you, yeah? He never told anybody, officially. But when he passed away, yeah, so a close Talmud told me, and he says, and I asked his son, and he confirmed it. Yeah, Rav Scheinberg was an unusually strong person. Unusually strong. What do I mean unusually strong? When he was a young man in his 80s, he used to get up on Yom Kippur, walk from Matisdorf to the Kaisel to daven Vasikin, and then he'd walk back from the Kaisel back to Yeshiva and stand and daven for the Amud for the rest of Yom Kippur. That's when he was a young man in his 80s. When he was in his 90s already, it was a little more difficult. But there was one Shabbos when he had a heart incident. I don't know if it was a heart attack or what it was, and they wanted to rush him to the hospital. And he says, "What? On Shabbos? You wait till after Shabbos." He was unusually strong, and he wanted to be mevatel his gashmias, and he used to wear these tzitzis because it was able to dampen it a little bit. The same Talmud told me that one time his tefillin shoyad melted from the heat of wearing all those tzitzis. Yeah, he was somebody who was unusually strong, unusually gifted, very special person. Some people are like that. Other people are like me. People say, I say, how long does it take to get there? They go, it's a 10-minute walk. I said, to get from my bedroom out my front door is 10 minutes. What are you talking about? Jackie Mason says, we're going to have an intermission. I'm going to ask the Gentiles to please let the Jews leave first. He says, it takes them longer. So the Gentile gets up and he leaves. And the Jew goes, something pulling over here. I don't know what it is. Oh, this leg. There's something on this leg. Some people it's hard. Some people it's hard. They can't get up without a crack. And other people, they're very strong. Some people can handle a tremendous amount of emotional tension And other people, if one thing goes wrong, they just fall apart. They don't know what to do. They wander around. They can't handle it. I knew this lady, wonderful lady. I used to joke with her. I said, she was super organized. I said, she used to put away her fruits and vegetables in alphabetical order. You know what I mean? Like, she was just very organized. So whenever she has some spare time, she rearranges the sock drawer. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of a person, very organized. The other people, you walk into their house, it's hop plop, everything's all over the place, Just to get themselves together, Certain people, no problem. They get up in the morning. Other people, if they wake up in the morning, they want a round of applause. Did you see I got up this morning? Ay, 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 ay. Life is filled with challenges. Yeah. Don't measure anybody's pain. Don't try to figure out who has the worst. Yeah. Don't go down that road. Just remember that whatever we have to face, that's the challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me. And it would be nice if things turned out better. But as I tell the story all the time, this Hasidic guy told me this story once when things were going wrong, and he says to me, Rabbi Yitzchak Baditchev was working with his Hasidim, and he said, if I was a HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know what I would do? They said, what, Rebbe? He said, just what he's doing now. Why, you think I'm smarter than him? We think we're smarter than him. Don't be smarter than him. He knows what he's doing. Mitzvah Hashem, all of us will have the chizuk. When we look at the avos and the imahos and all the challenges the Jews have had to face throughout history, to face whatever our challenges are with a smile.